While the pandemic wreaked havoc on the service industry, the one positive thing COVID-19 taught restaurant owners is how to survive by expanding outdoor dining.
23 News reporter Jim Haggerty tells us why this trend is here to stay as we arrive on the first post-pandemic patio season.
Increased outdoor dining was not only a silver lining, but also a lifeline for restaurants just trying to stay afloat. And now, 3 years after the first shelter-in-place orders, pre-pandemic crowds are taking advantage of enhanced outdoor dining options.
COVID taught us how to pivot in more ways than one.
For Octane owner Patrick Alberto, that meant expanding his dining room to the sidewalk outside his downtown restaurant. It helped him stay open during the pandemic, and it's what he's excited about now that his sales are starting to finally come back.
Every month just gets better. The amount of people coming out and being comfortable to come out and eat has been enormous.
Not having to rely on outdoor dining to survive is a breath of fresh air for restaurants like Octane. It means they can work on building a following like Rockford eateries that have had expanded patio service for years.
They've been coming in for 20 years. I've got people that I've been waiting on solidly for 20 years and taking care of. They're still coming in today.
But Plummer and Alberto have had one thing in common since the pandemic, a need to increase their workforce.
We need more people. Not a lot of people are coming in the door for it. They're not looking for jobs. I'm not for sure what that's all about.
Rockford leaders say they're not surprised that outdoor dining didn't go away when the pandemic ended.
People want to be outside, dine outside. It's a good feeling. It's a good atmosphere. I think it's a welcoming atmosphere for people that are coming from out of town and just coming downtown from Rockford.
Since the pandemic, a number of Rockford restaurants, Octane included, have opened food trucks as a way to get creative with their outdoor dining services.
Although pre-COVID crowds have returned, costs are still an issue for local restaurants.
Owners say what was a 25% margin before the pandemic is right now around 5 or 10%. But why not go outside and dine this week?
Yeah, absolutely.